Welcome to the Essential Libertarians. I'm your host, Cream Mays, giving you the tools for self-governance. I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Daniel Betro. Daniel, what is up?
Mandate back. Appeals court, reinstated it. So that's big news, obviously, on that front. Tim Pool almost got beat up yesterday. So that's kind of fun. I don't know if you heard about this. I don't think we talked about it, but the FDA basically came after the Johnson & Johnson and said, well, this isn't effective now. We're pushing for Pfizer and Moderna because one of the funniest things was that Babylon Bee put out a fake article. That's what they do. And it was like something about Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson buying company to help cure with myocarditis attacks, and it literally happened where they actually acquired another company or something of that nature, and then that this company works in the treatment prevention of cardiac problems, myocarditis, pericarditis, inflammation of the heart. So it's weird how you see like things that are parody become reality because of how distorted everything is.
Yeah, no, I actually saw that. They're like, and I heard that first initial recall. They're like, Johnson & Johnson bad, but we like Pfizer and Moderna. Now Johnson & Johnson's good. And you know what's funny? There's a fundamental differences. I think the J&J uses an attenuated virus and the other two are RNA based. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what's good or bad. You know what? I'm all for the alternative ways of handling this. So if you want to exercise bodily autonomy, if you want to keep the Ron Paul revolution going and the ideals of Murray Rothbard, go to the lpmisescaucus.com, where you will find a lot of information and resources on freedom. And if you enjoy what you see, you can type in your name, last name, email address, phone number, state, and if you'd like to become a delegate, you can do that and be part of the decentralized revolution. So let's start with what you're talking about first. Federal Appeals Court reinstates Biden's administrative, business, medical procedure, and testing mandate. So one thing I do want to say before we get into this is a lot of people get excited. They're like, ooh, the federal government pushed something that I didn't like. And now they remember that. Does that mean it's good? And what I always tell people is just like getting out of the World Health Organization, Paris Climate Accord, you're saying those are big wins. They can be reversed real quick. So if that is the case, if a central institution can just push one bad policy out, they can bring it back right in. So maybe it's the central institution that's the problem, not the people who necessarily you ping pong around, because they'll ping pong the policies around too. Just my thought. Anyway, so what happened? Unfortunately, the Federal Appeals Court reinstated the Biden administration's medical procedure and testing requirement for private businesses, which I have a problem with them saying that because they're not, a lot of businesses are not private. They are either getting help, encouragement, or something from the state government, local government, or federal government, but I'll leave that alone for now. And that covers about 80 million American workers. The ruling by the 6th U.S. Court of Appeals in Cincinnati lifted a November injunction that blocked the rule from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, which applies to businesses with at least 100 workers. And they actually did that Friday. The Sixth Circuit noted that OSHA has historically had precedent for using wide discretion to ensure worker safety and demonstrated the pervasive danger that this poses to workers, people who didn't get the medical procedure in particular, their workplaces. And Biden administration was actually stopped last month, and the enforcement of the requirements to comply with an order was issued by the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans with Judge Kurt D. Engelhardt. An opinion for a 3-judge panel says the requirements were staggeringly overbroad and raised serious constitutional concerns. Now, this is quite a long article. What I'm going to say here is this. I think you can look at this two ways. I think people have to realize that if you have a big central institution, a gargantuan one that you can't control, even if you have one judge that does something in your favor of freedom, which I was excited when he banned them and blocked them, They will always use the power, in my opinion, to find a loophole and pull it back. I don't care what you put in there. I don't care what you say about it. Like, oh, well, they'll never, go after, me for X. Yes, they will. They'll just play a loophole. They'll find something. That's what authoritarians do. Doesn't matter how well your whatever it is written. They're going to find a way to slowly erode the Bill of Rights. The only way to beat this, in my opinion, is mass noncompliance and getting stuff sorted out well at the local level and potentially the state level. I don't know. What do you think? Am I wrong?
Well, I think bad policy can be reprimanded in many ways by good policy. And I think the way that our system is set up, it's very easy when it comes to, especially we've seen now in the last, 50, 60 years since FDR really, a expansion of executive privileges when it comes to executive action. But what do we see after every administration? You have all these policies that say they're bad, let's say they're good, let's say they're pro-socialism, pro-capitalism, pro-market, whatever the case is, whatever the nature of their contents are. Another administration can come in and just revoke all of those executive orders by putting in their executive orders. And you say, well, that's bad because nothing good can stick. And it's like, well, that is true, but also nothing bad can. And I think it's the same way at the local level. How many times have we seen, especially with civil rights, how many times have we seen bad policy, large portions of bad policy get counteracted by good policy? And I think you can do that. That's one thing you can do. And we've seen it already happen in Florida. We've seen it happen in Texas, where and I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's from the constitutionalist perspective that it's right. But I'm saying is what they're doing in these states, and they differ on the degrees. But I know Texas outright banned the mandates.
They did.
Means if the federal government tries to impose its will on the decentralized states, those who feel that they want to protect their own sovereign rights can. And it works. And what is Biden going to do? You think he's going to invade Florida or Texas?
No.
Please, he's not. And he knows he's not. So here's the deal. The way that the states are set up, and this is going to suck, and it might be bad, it's going to be scary to hear. You have to be in a state which the majority of your people in office who hold political positions are willing to take a stand against this. If not, if you're in a place like New York, you're going to get mandates. You're going to get lots of them. They're going to get worse. It's going to be restrictive. You're going to need a medical procedure to simply get into basic public accommodation. It's going to happen, and there's no stopping it. Not in the current state, at least not in the next year. So either you have to relocate, which I get it. It's not easy to pick up everything and leave, but you have to ask yourself. And I was going to make a post on Facebook today, but I deleted it. I do that a lot. But the premise of the post was simply the family is that which creates the architects of the future generation. So when you're doing this, whether you have necessarily 2 children, 3 children, any children, right? Or if you want children, you have to understand the world in which you live in. Do you want to the way in which you are living in this world, would it be the way in which you'd want a child to live in that same world? Is the world around you to that is malleable to your extent to which you can manipulate the outside world? Or is it being manipulated in a way that you would want a child to live? If not, then you should leave and you should make better where you go. And I get it. All the people who stayed in California, all the people I know who are in New York, who are trying to make New York good. You need people, because if everyone leaves New York, if all the rich people leave, all the wealthy middle class who have the money, it's going to be the poor people, the people in poverty who have
there's another thing too.
Yeah, who have no financial power, and they're going to be stuck in that hellhole, and they're going to be trapped. And I think there needs to be people willing to fight, but there also needs to be people willing to accept the danger that is the chaos around them and move.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. And I think one, I was going to just comment New York. The governor is really scary with her necklace. If you see her necklace,
Mama Cuomo.
I tell people, like, even, yeah, bring back Cuomo, please, because Cuomo was a weirdo, but like I didn't see Cuomo like, check out my medical procedure necklace. That's
She's wearing a neck. What are you talking about? She's wearing like a necklace or something?
yeah. I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up. I'll tell you what. Hochul, I think, is her name. But here's the thing. I was going to say, yeah. I mean, there's some crazy things, but what I was going to say is this: there's one problem with people leaving, but just for our viewers, if you want, when I argue that this is a pseudo religion or a scientific religion or scientism, just like government is, people are like, no, it's not. I'm like, well, just because you're not going to church doesn't mean it's a religion. And when you ignore everything and just say, do this, it's a religion. It's a religion.
Well, it's funny, dude, because one thing I'm talking about in my book, and I think we should get into this, is the degradation of not only social institutions, but of the social atmosphere and the way we communicate, and the fact that social media has been altering the way in which we think about not only us within, not only our internal processes. It's not only affecting our dopaminergic system, our adrenal gland, our release of epinephrine and norepinephrine, and actually affecting our systems, but it's affecting the world around you in such a way where it's like you have this technological world that is sort of underneath the real world, or you could even say it's sort of underneath and above. It's sort of everywhere. It's dimensional. It's not necessarily, it's definitely not stagnant, right? But then you have the real world, and slowly but surely, it hasn't been instantaneously, but in the last 20 years, you've had this sort of web of not only the internet, but of social media, of technology, and it's been looking to integrate into man and women's. I just use man as a term, right? I'm not just saying men, but I'm just saying into mankind's consciousness and unconsciousness. It's been trying to integrate, but because the technology hasn't been quite advanced enough to make a full apprehension of the psyche of the collective hive mind, well, it's been sort of wandering around until in the last 10 years, really, we've seen a almost a rapid, radical integration of technology into everyday's life, to the point where the average teen spends 7 hours and 22 minutes on their phone and on screens. I'll repeat that again. That is a staggering statistic. 7 hours and 22 minutes on their phone, right? That's literally half of their waking day, unless they're staying up to 1 a.m., which they might be playing video games, which is also a problem in itself. I'm not against video games, but anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But the point is that it's altered our state of being. It's altered our cognitive mind. It's definitely altered in the way people behave. But more importantly, it's altered and distorted the way people look at reality, because there's reality and then there's a meta reality or a virtual reality. So it's like with girls on Instagram, it's like there's this hierarchy of beauty, right? And then there's like, let's just say the Kim Kardashian. Let's say that's not the case anymore, right? Pick, whatever the prettiest model is, but let's just use Kim K for this example, right? She's the top. She's at the top of the beauty hierarchy. Now, we all know the surgeries and the fact that majority of that is not real, but okay, let's say that changes. Let's say it continues to go on to other people. And that beauty, which isn't real in itself, keeps becoming higher. It keeps getting closer to perfection. Whatever that sort of physical perfection is, it's going to be deemed by the females at the bottom and the guys as well. So while women's outlook of what the best is, what you should look like, gets distorted, because people are now using filters, and over 90% of females on all social media use filters, which is an also crazy statistic. 90% of all females on there are distorting themselves to then look like that peak of the beauty hierarchy, right? And this is happening with men and happening with internet porn, where certain men, and not just that's just an example, where their perception of what they should get, like what is out there, what is real and what is not, what is highly highly beautiful people, right? They're hyper beautiful. That is a small fraction of what females are, but that then becomes their distorted reality, which then creates resentment among women and females, because now females have this constant changing image of perfection, and they feel as though they always miss the mark because they do, which is why they keep using filters to get closer to the mark. And then men feel as though that they're not getting what they should, because the mark, when it comes to females, it's altering, and they see that. And because they maybe see other guys with certain girls, which are being altered and distorted online, they have a distorted view of themselves. So it's very toxic. And I'm documenting all this in my book. And I'm working on a big theory, as you could probably see. That wasn't just like something I just whipped together in a second. I've been really thinking about this, man, and how bad it is. Not technology, man, but it seems to be the way we're going with technology is not on the good side. It's on the toxic, very, very highly disorder side. It's on the psychopathology side.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about all of what you're saying is that a lot of people have been kind of sucked into this matrix, and I don't really see them coming out of it anytime soon, at least. So what we have to do, in my opinion, is just keep putting out the right information, just letting people know like the impacts of like daily things that they can do or not do. The only thing I'm worried about it, though, just going back to your point of people leaving, is there's a lot of people who lived in California, in New York, who voted for all of Hochul's and Cuomo's policies, Newsom, Whitmer, all that. And then things turned bad. Now, I don't anticipate that they're pulling out like a Milton Friedman book and going, oh, okay, yeah, high taxes does this. Oh, okay, well, Robert Murphy said, if you saw his interview with Peterson, oh, this is the reason things are bad. They're just like, oh, things are bad, huh? High taxes, all this stuff. I don't like that. Let me move to this red state. Oh, what are you going to vote for? Kind of the same thing I did before. I'm like, oh boy. And I don't think they really get that lesson that, hey, my bad policies are breaking stuff. They just kind of like come in here like, oh, well, I tried equity here, made everything bad. That's too bad. I'll move somewhere else. Oh, it's doing well here. We need more equity-based policy. Oh, that's
just
bad.
Remember, one thing I like to say about equity is it works. If you're looking for a policy, right? If you're looking to equalize not only the means of production, but the distribution of resources, equity works. It works in theory and it works in practice. But you might want to know that whatever your position is in the socioeconomic hierarchy right now, that will drop a lot. And the people who are rich, yeah, they'll drop, but they're not going to drop that much, right? So the idea that, you know, with equity, we're going to equalize people's not only income, but resource consumptions and private property. Well, if you do that, that's fine. But most people don't like being equal, right? What if I tell you that, hey, you worked 50 hours today, but guess what? You worked 50 hours and that other person worked 40, and you guys deserve both the same pay. There is no difference in labor contributed to the market. There is no differences. Everyone makes the same all the time, regardless of work and regardless of productivity. Well, you'd be like, well, I'm not for that. I work my ass off, right? I work a job 60, 70, 80 hours. I want to get paid for it. Well, that's not fair because other people aren't getting paid as much. Well, when you use Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos as these hyper productive, hyper successful individuals, and you're like, well, they're rich and I don't want them to have money. Well, why should you? Who are you to say who's anyone else is to have any sort of money? What have you produced? And I think the probability of people producing and getting what they produce is actually, from the data, very likely. It's just you don't want to admit what you're producing is not even close to the amount in which Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are producing that is adding to the economy. Admit to yourself that what Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk do have provided jobs for hundreds of thousands of people, technology which has innovated the way we all live our lives. And if you want to make that much, well, go ahead and run 4 companies, but I highly doubt you will.
Yeah. Elon Musk, I like Bezos. I know works with the CIA, who's probably watching this. Hi, CIA agent. How you doing? Quit being evil. But yeah, I completely understand where you're going from this. I think there was a rapper named Zuby, correct?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
he has like the hat, and he's always looking up in his avatar. I like the avatar; that was kind of cool. And I think he said like if we gave everybody the same amount of money starting today, we change everybody's bank accounts to the same amount. It's equity, right? In a year, most people would probably be back to where they started or where they're at now. Most people would have blown it. And he said, not all of them, but most. And I agree with that because I see how people who win the lottery spend, their wealth as opposed to people who work for it. And it's fundamentally different.
Yeah, and it's like, well, let me get this straight. You're complaining about how you don't have that much money, right? And someone else has a large sum of money that you don't have. But while you're doing that, you're spending 40 to 50% of your paycheck on consumer products, which aren't investing in your money. So it's like, so you want to make more money while simultaneously spending a quarter of it on things that are not getting you more money. So what you're saying is you want to get paid more money to splurge with, right? Because
Yeah.
the idea that, I mean, and I'm not trying to come for the working class here because
No, but
there's a
I'll tell
lot
you
of
what,
working class individuals who have investment funds. And you know who's getting hit from this goddamn inflation more than anyone?
working class people,
It's
it ain't the
working
super
class
rich.
people. Their savings, put it like this. I'm going to say this very precisely. This is a daunting statistic. With the current rate of inflation we're at right now, you take $10,000 and put it in a savings account. Within 10 years, it's worth $5,000. Think
Yeah,
about
that
that.
doesn't math.
Think about that. That's a statistic that should scare the living hell out of you financially, especially if you're not rich, because you need somewhere to put your goddamn money. And and let me tell you one thing right now. If you want to know what's making you most liable to this inflation, it's the goddamn dollar. The dollar, as I say before, and I'll say again, is people's biggest liability right now. I'm not saying it's a one size fits all. It's not just Bitcoin. It's not just Ethereum. It's not just gold. There's so many other stores of value and hedges against inflation. But get your money out of the dollar. Why do you think the government loves the dollar so much? You think it's because the dollar helps make poor people more wealthy? Don't
No,
you
no,
think?
because they can use it to expand their hegemony. I mean, that's what they came after Hussein and Gaddafi for. But hey, if you want some money from the ultra rich, just get in with the mainstream media, and Bill Gates will hook you up. He'll be like, "Hey, man, can you push my agenda? I named my company after a certain body part, and now people are mean to me, so I want to wipe out a bunch of them. So if you could push my thing here's $35 million. Okay, go say everything I'm doing is great. Woohoo! I'm a philanthropist, right?
Yeah, and Bill Gates, the same person who was supporting Theranos, one of the most fraudulent companies ever created, that basically scammed people out of millions and millions of dollars on a false product. It's like Bill Gates, that Bill Gates, who's donated $300 million to different media corporations. The Bill Gates who's funded different different vaccine programs in Africa and has been effectively banned from multiple countries for having people get more polio from the polio vaccines than were already the case in that country. So it's like, listen, man, you want to talk about conspiracy? It's not a conspiracy that Ted Turner wants to lower the global population. It's not a conspiracy that Jeff Bezos has billions of dollars and he wants to integrate with AI. It's not a conspiracy that a lot of rich people want to live longer and they don't want to die, and they're actively trying to create technology to stop that. It's not a conspiracy.
It's not, but they need a lapdog. And one thing I will say is this is not financial advice. In my opinion, if you want to keep getting dollars, do it, but open a Coinbase account. Once you see that inflation is so ridiculous, like peaches are $20, in my opinion, the best hedge against inflation without any risk is you take your money from the bank and you convert it to something called USD Tether. You get a 1-to-1 exchange. I don't think Tether can be destroyed by inflation. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think so. So, yeah, you can save dollars. Just make sure you're ready to throw it in Tether when whatever happens.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
The thing with Tether is it's like that would work, but let's just say you put your thousands of dollars in Tether instead of your bank account. you pull out that $10,000 in 10 years, it's still going to be inflated when it comes to your buying power. So it's like the only way you can really conserve your, like, truly conserve your dollar and stop it from being inflated is to put it in something that will grow. It doesn't have to grow instantaneously. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin type growth, but in anything which has gone, and Bitcoin would probably be the best one, given that it hasn't had a down year ever, that it might be the best idea to put it in something where the value is going to grow, not devalue.
Yeah. Well, what I'd say is Tether is a 1-to-1 ratio. So you can put it in Tether and then start trading it in Coinbase or Gemini or KuCoin or Binance for Bitcoin if you'd like. Or I have a feeling Walmart one day will say, well, we have Bitcoin, you can do Bitcoin. Or we can do it.
True.
I don't know if they'll do Dogecoin or Shiba Inu, but they might say, okay, fine. What do you want to do? Like, oh, well, I just want to exchange my dollars for Tether. I don't see people being in the future being opposed to Tether. I really don't. Maybe they will be, but I think Tether's is a safe bet. That's just me. But speaking of people who want conspiracies, you got to have a lapdog to do it. You can't. They don't want to do it themselves because then they'll get in trouble. So who's their fall guy? Well, we know who it is. So what is he doing? WeAreChange.org, good news site. Fauci sets the stage for the Omicron panic. Oh my God. It's the scariest thing ever. Warns hospitals could be overwhelmed within weeks. Yeah, from listening to you, people are going to lose brain cells. If I had to listen to you, if I have to listen to you for 4 more years, yeah, I'll be in the hospital. Help. I feel like my brain cells are popping. I feel like I can't think straight. This guy won't shut up. This guy won't go away. Dr. Anthony Fauci on Thursday predicted the Omicron variant will likely be the dominant strain in the U.S. within a few weeks. Dun, dun, dun. So scary. And that hospitals will be overwhelmed this winter. Fauci's caveat was that the number of people who got the procedure, especially those who got the booster procedure, will leave them relatively well protected against the severe disease. But with this Omicron, breathing down our back, things could get really bad, particularly if you didn't get it. And he said an event hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the people who are boosted, I believe, will be relatively well protected. Okay, that's kind of funny. And I'll say why in a second. But the Biden administration also said that they support what he's doing. Asked about business closures, and Fauci said it's really going to depend on how well we do with interventions like wearing these, frickin' things on our face in indoor public settings and getting these procedures. If we do that, I don't believe we'll have to be doing any kind of shutdown. How about we just don't do it? Because this guy has a good question, Mike Tracy. Can anyone give a coherent explanation for why boosters are being mandated to curb this Omicron thing, which is purportedly spreading at exponential rates? Because existing procedures do not prevent infection transmission. Hence the spread on 99% of people who get these procedures on college campuses. And I will add to that saying in Australia, to my knowledge, you can't go in or out. They got Omicron. Where did it come from? So, and correct me if I'm wrong on the Australia thing, but I think that's something worth looking into. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
But yeah, this makes to me, I want to ask who the heck is still listening to this guy. In my opinion, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The Fauci. But like, who's listening to Bill Gates' and Ted Turner's pet? To me, that's what he is. He's the fall guy for them. Like, they don't, to me, elites, if I'm an elite, I don't want to do stuff myself. I get caught. I want to get caught. So what do? I get presidents. I get people, the director of the NIH. I get like Rochelle Walensky. I have to get people out to do all the crazy stuff that I want to do. All this psychopathic stuff I want to do. How do I do it? Well, I have to get a guy like Fauci to say all this BS. The funny thing is, maybe hospitals will get overwhelmed, but I'll bet you there'll be people who took this procedure. I'll bet you what they're trying to do is scare people to get this procedure and to tell them, like, oh, if you don't comply, then we're going to put you back down. So this is even what got me about Jordan B. Peterson, and I'm not criticizing him. I like his work, Sam Harris and all that, is I tell people that, hey, look, if this isn't jail. If you comply, if you say, ooh, I'll do what you say just to make it stop, it won't stop. If you say that, oh, I'm just going to have to go along with the program and then I'll get my freedom back, it's not how it works. That's how jail works. That's how compliance works. That's what you do when you train a dog. This is not the way. And I keep telling people, like, talking to a person, I do some work on the weekend, they're like, can you just wear the mask, Kareem, again? And I'm like, no. I'm like, well, he's like, why are you so defiant? I'm like, well, we have to make a stand and say no. He's like, but you're just one dude. I'm like, Rosa Parks was just one woman. He's like, well, you're still being defiant. You're not. I'm like, I get it. I'm not her. I'm not going to claim I'm like defending or I'm a big deal. But look, listen, if you guys all say no and tell them how it is, it'll stop, at least temporarily.
Why wouldn't you comply with someone you love, right? It's this idea that some people find it very hard to believe that there's people out there, females more specifically, who get kidnapped and get taken, and they end up loving their abuser, even though their abuser continues to physically, verbally, psychologically, emotionally abuse them, degrade them, hurt them physically, mentally. Why would they love such an evil, malevolent force like that? Well, because they know no different. And I mean that from a neurological standpoint as well. In their brain, right, when it comes to the ventral tegmental area and the way that it releases dopamine, we know from a large portion of different drugs, certain, and it could be partly because of negative side effects you've had some drugs, when that dopamine system begins to get reinforced in such a way that your behavior has been rewarded, or you could say, actually, in this case, certain behavior is not rewarded, and the way that your brain releases not only dopamine but epinephrine, which is adrenaline, you've now been in a way sort of comatose to get into a state of normalized behavior to where your abuser has literally beat it in many cases into you, that if you try and leave, there's no point. You're not leaving, and you're mine forever. And if you even think about anyone else being in this mental vicinity near me, well, you might want to think again. And then that beating into that, you could say, that slave mentality, the beating of it, the beating of obedience. It doesn't take one day. It takes time for something like Stockholm Syndrome to set in. It's not something that happens instantaneously. So I say again, why would someone want to disobey the person that they have an affectionate relationship with? And it's easy not to disobey, right? The average man prefers safety over liberty and freedom. So the average man does not want to be free. He simply wants to be safe. And
Michael Malice.
I will say this over and over again. If you want to get people to not comply, it's not by telling them necessarily that, hey, you should comply. Yeah, well, Hitler should stop being Hitler. Maybe he should have just stopped killing the Jews. Maybe the slave should have just stopped. The slave owner should have stopped owning slaves, right? You should have, like, if you think that's all you're going to do to get someone to change their actions, which have been incentivized and reinforced over years of time, think again. What you have to do, and this isn't the only option, it's just I see it as the most viable option that the everyday average American can do to really get people to non-comply. And this doesn't even always work. We're dealing with people who are psychologically enveloped into a psychosis of propaganda, where their whole worldview is under a shell and it's thick. And how do you break an egg, right? You have to crack that shell slowly. You can't just. I mean, sometimes it happens like that. You get one good crack and it breaks everything open, right? But what I suggest is an incremental approach to this, to where you're showing people not only information, not only data, right? Because people will look through the data. Data is useless. Rationalism to the non-rationalists will not work. And I've dealt with that in my own life, trying to convince someone who's far from rational that this is how it should, and here's the data. Damn it, they're not looking at numbers and stats and statistics and stories. You know what they need to be changed? They need an emotional story, a narrative. You need to change the narrative in their head, because the data will almost always fail. You have to tell them that the narrative is different. You have to create an emotional response in their mind, in their brain, through and you can literally you can use the amygdala to your advantage, because the amygdala is that archaic almond-shaped structure in the brain that can completely override the cortex and then triggers anxiety and emotional responses. And it's like, if you can get to that, if you can get these people to really have an emotional response to something, show them what these people have been doing, show them the Fauci videos of the dog, show them the bad stuff that's going on, and it will work much better than simply trying to say, oh, well, you're wrong, the media's lying. Oh, well, here's the data on all this stuff. It's like, good luck with that, man. That's not doing any, doesn't seem to be helping, does it?
I've never got that ever to work. Like, here, look at the data, 99.997%. They're like, yeah, but it's still bad. I'm like, okay. Like, they're not going to. And
that makes sense with liberals. That makes sense when we're talking about liberals, because they're highest in trade openness. And when you're highest in trade openness, guess what? You think in a creative mind, and you think more abstractly. Now, when it comes to conscientious people, they're more left brain thinkers. And we can go into this all day, the neurochemistry of it, but it makes sense why you have to try and chase a narrative, why you have to try and trigger an emotional response to people that are highest in trade openness. You can't just simply assume that what the person you're talking to assumes what you already know. You can't assume that what you think is self-evident is what they think is self-evident, because it's probably the case it's not. Even the basics. It's like, well, come on, you know the vaccines. Well, no, I don't. Well, no, I don't know this. It's like, good. You're talking to people who don't know that the mainstream media is lying to them, right? Starting from that, assume that the person you're talking to doesn't even know that. Right. Okay. Well, you're going to have to start from the beginning, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Let me break this down, because I was talking to a guy who's going in pharmacy school. Sometimes they like come by while they're talking to me, and then while I'm doing computer work. And I said, hey, and I explained to him, like, well, this is what's going on. He's like, Kareem, I agree with you that like other treatments could work, but there's no money, so they won't do that. And I'm like, okay. Well, my position is I'm a libertarian, and I know this might sound a little bit contradictory for you or a little bit shocking. Is, well, I just want to completely defund the FDA and the CDC. Like, not the conservative of, oh, there's some bad people in there, let's change some seats around, like everybody's fired, we're shutting the doors, and like I need medical advice. Well, bookmark WebMD, bruh, because or we'll figure out a free market solution. I don't know what that is yet. And he's like, you can't do that. And I'm like, why can't I do that? He's like, there are people who literally need people to tell them what to do. They can't function, if you just get rid of like Rochelle Walensky or the CDC or the FDA or the NIH. They wouldn't be able, they'd just be like, like, what do I do? What do I think? Tell me what to do. And I think that's a fundamental problem. It's not that there's other sources out there. Look, I look at Dr. Mercola. I look at Dr. Peter McCulloch now. I look at, Dolores Cahill. I look at the World Doctors Alliance. I look at, I'm trying to think of her name, Dr. Simone Gold. There's a lot of doctors out there, Dr. Ben Tapper. They get different opinions. And Dr. Yeadon, who formerly worked for Pfizer. And they all have different opinions. Some of them say, oh, well, all these type of medical procedures are bad. And some say, no, they're good, but these ones are bad. Or this one isn't working. Or, this is the problem here. And they have different ideas of what it does and what it won't do, and different things, Judy Mikovits has a different outlook. So I'm not saying they even have a continuous outlook, but I don't think people want to look at them, because you have to dig and find their stuff and be like, do I agree with this? And kind of look at the studies they're doing. But the FDA and CDC just say, You do it. This is how you do it. People are like, oh, okay, yeah, thinking's hard. I don't want to do that. That's scary. I might come across some information or something that contradicts my worldview, and then I'll be scared. And I get it. It's hard because when someone challenges anarchy, I'm like, okay, jump at the bit. But wait, let me think. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going too far? But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. Just to bring it up, though, if you don't want to think for yourself and you're like, Kareem wants a good news source, I like We Are Change. But I'm not going to say, oh, they're the best thing. They're always right. Check them out. See what you think. Now, he said hospitalizations would explode in the U.S. Interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure the U.S. has better health care than South Africa. South Africa has some deep systemic problems. That being said, if cases are going to rise in the U.S., then and it's going to be the worst thing. How come South Africa's hospital rates plunge despite Omicron? We can see this here, Alpha Delta, all this stuff. What's going on in the United States over the past few weeks? The Omicron variant has exploded in South Africa. I think the first case was in Botswana, spread across the globe. Yet, despite all the connecting about the variant being on track to succeed Delta as the world's dominant strain, it reported a much lower rate of hospital admissions amid signs that the wave of infections might be peaking. Only 1.7% of identified cases were admitted to the hospital in the second week of infections in the fourth wave. That's compared to the 19% of the third Delta-driven wave. And then he also says there's a few differentiators that make this different from other countries. The population is young, between 70 and 80%. And he's saying they're really not seeing a lot of increases in deaths or anything like that. I've seen a decrease in proportion of people who need to be on oxygen. The final takeaway, though, is for the first time, there are more non-severe than severe patients in the hospital. So you can say, okay, I'll even give them this. Okay, South Africa has a younger population. I get that. But look, 1.7% of people who got this were admitted to the hospital. Also, for the first time, there's more non-severe than severe. So if you're taking the data from the South African, doctors, media, whatever, Fauci's completely wrong. I'll bet you he's saying this to freak you. So before you freak out, before what like your corporate overlords and your medical overlords say, I don't know, take a look at the people who are talking about this, where it came from. Take a look at the source. They might have something contradictory to say, as opposed to what the established media is going to tell you, which is just be scared, lock your doors, hide under your bed forever and ever and ever. So that's my take on it. In South Africa, they're not freaking about it, and it's where it originated from. I don't think we should freak about it. And that's what I've been telling people. Hey, South African doctors haven't been freaking about it. Maybe you should chill out.
Yeah, and even the doctors said it's like quote from the doctor, South African doctors, like, well, I think the one who discovered it said, I'm very disappointed with the way the world responded to this because of the nature of its severity and how it is milder and how, well, it's like there's a push, right? You get a push in life. People push you, maybe verbally push you, right? And usually, unless for some reason you're on edge and maybe your adrenaline gets pumping and maybe your nervous system is moving around in all a wonky way, maybe you take medications, maybe you overreact to that push, right? But how many times when someone, let's just say, yells at you, do you just go up and start punching them, right? No, because that's an overreaction. Right? Typically, human beings, and this isn't always the case because we're very malleable and situations and circumstances differ and they differ radically, but like usually the force to which gets put forth to you or the force you're facing is the force you're going to be using against that which you're facing. And this is the case even in law. When we talk about law, we talk about reasonable force. We talk about the amount of force which was used against you, and we're going to judge with how that force was, its severity, and the severity of your response, right? Someone might go up and say, hey, you're an asshole. You can't just take out a gun and shoot them. Someone even might go up and push you, but you can't just take out your gun and shoot them, right? There has to be a degree of reasonableness to your action. It has to match the output that's being that's coming after you. So it's the same thing with this. It's like we are not being reasonable in our response. We are not using equal force. We are being very, very overdramatic in our response to this virus, and that's been the whole story of 2020 and COVID.
And the reason, though, I think is quite clear. They have an incentive that they want to get total control.
You think the lockdown? I mean,
yeah. Well, to me, the World Economic Forum's like, ooh, Omicron, another chance. You'll own nothing and you'll like it. Like they're trying to find any excuse. If it wasn't this, it'd be climate change. It's something else.
See,
they're trying to get an
I'm not so sure about that. That's the thing is like, I'm not so sure that let's just say some people want lockdowns. Okay, let's just say that there's a portion of the people in government who do want lockdowns, but I'm not so sure if that's the case, which is in a lot of ways even scarier, right? It might make much more sense if there was this global cabal and they all wanted to lock us down to extract money from the poor and give it to the rich, which happened the last time, inadvertently or advertently. There was people who wanted it, but it happened regardless. What I think is there's a true aspect of fear, and I think the level of fear a lot of politicians have, I think it's not fake, and I think it's people in general. It's like it starts with the doctors, man. What did McCullough said? It was the first time where he was in his practice where he saw doctors too scared to perform pre-COVID treatment. They were too scared. That was the first time he said that he saw that doctors weren't treating patients because they were scared to get sick.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think they're okay. I'll quantify it by saying this. I can't prove. I always say like, okay, Occam's razor. If you can't prove it, and I can't exactly prove it, that there's definitely global elites out there. What I'll say is this: maybe they're not. There's definitely ones that want to lock down, want to control things. But can I prove all of them? Want to? Can I prove all politicians? No. What I can say is this: yeah, they're letting fear consume them, and a lot of them are addicted, in my opinion, to just like this is the end of the world. This is the scariest thing ever. Like
it's doomsday, right? Like
everything's doomsday. Oh,
yeah.
People broke into the Capitol. It's doomsday. They're coming. Like everything is scary to them. It's kind of funny that these people send people to wars. Everything's scary. I'll show you something.
That is true. That's probably a good point. So maybe it's both. Maybe it's like there's people who are overly scared, just like the doctors. But maybe it's also not necessarily that there's a unifying conspiracy, but that when there was lockdowns, the government got to put forth a lot of legislation, which they normally would not. And guess what? They get to spend. They get to spend. They get to pump out money, which then drives consumer spending. And certain corporations, which lobby like hell to a lot of these politicians, they get paid big. And guess what? They pay big back to the people who made the code in which they could get that money, right? Who do you think pays the regulators? It's not the regulator funders. It's the corporations who suffer the wrath of those regulations. You know who is more responsible in putting forth regulations? It's corporations more so than government currently. And I'm not saying that's how it should be. Let me be very clear. But how many times have we seen corporations come out with referendum and how they would like certain tax policy to be, how they would like certain reporting policy to be, and guess what? They'll come out, oh, we think we should do this, and then miraculously the code changes to exactly what they said that it should be because it would help them and it makes sense. It's like, no, that it doesn't work like that. You have government constantly in contact and communications with corporation, and they're both helping each other out. It's not like the government's just doing an old solid one for Walmart or Target. It's not like they're just helping them out. They're giving charity to Walmart. It's like, no, they're giving a lot of money on the side, and they're giving them a lot of. It's not necessarily cash money, but hey, maybe we got this thing coming up next month. It's a big contract. We'll let you know when that when that contract's going to happen. You put a couple thousand in our stock, stuff like that, which we've seen, right?
Yeah, maybe it's not even giving money. Maybe the corporations give them money and they take out all the competition. Now, if you have no competition,
There you go.
don't have an incentive to do anything better, and you can just sit around and say, "Hey, I'm sorry. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have high speed. You wouldn't have this. You wouldn't have that." Oh, but we can compete. No, you can't. And governments have a lot of these big industrial complexes and big this, big that is because government made it impossible to compete with subsidies and things like that. So I agree with Elon Musk there. Also, I'm sure government loves this because, hey, don't let a good crisis go to waste, right? And they use this crisis and use this crisis. There's a meme I really love that said, if you let governments use emergencies, to break the law, then they'll keep creating emergencies so they can continuously break and rewrite the law. So, yeah, if you just say, "Oh, okay, well, it's okay if they break the law. We have an emergency. We have X." They're going to say, "Okay, that's great. Well, we're going to rewrite the laws now because we want to keep you safe. Here's the Patriot Act. We just want to keep you safe. Don't worry though. Once we get all the bad guys, we'll give you your freedom back. It's just temporary." Not so much. "Oh, okay, well, just 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we're all good. We'll give you your freedom back." Did they? I don't know. But there's no limit to what they'll do. People say they don't believe me. I say, hey, well, if you go to Health Impact News, you can see that Pfizer has started injecting a third dose of their experimental procedure into infants and children as the Omicron pushes sales to 50 billion. So guys, be afraid of Omicron.
Wow.
There's no financial or other incentive here. They just want to keep you safe. And they'll give you your rights back or something like that. Heard that. So what is there? What do they want to do? So Pfizer plans to test the third dose of the Rona procedure on infants and young children. And
I love it. Animals you don't even need animal trials anymore. Like after COVID, it's like scratch the animal trials. We'll start immediately on infants. We don't even need to go to animal trials. I mean, isn't that ridiculous, man?
I mean, yeah, it's like that thing I saw with
start with the infants. Start them. We don't. You have the guy leading human resources and R&D probably like. So we're gonna have to do this. What? Don't worry about the dogs and the mouses and the rats. We'll go straight for the infants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I can say with the animals, and I've covered this with Keith Knight. Fauci's definitely doing his weird sandfly tests with them. So
yeah, he cuts their vocal cords out so when they scream and suffer in pain, they don't make noise. I mean, how sadistic do you have to be to do such a thing?
I mean, these are psychopaths. In my opinion, David Icke really explained it well. He's like, well, we'd never do that. We'd never be behind. We'd never be behind JFK. He's like, no, listen, you'd never do that. They don't care. They, to them, probably think, hey, I got to advance my agenda. If someone gets in the way or something, well, we'll take care of it. It's not about there's no morality. There's no this is wrong. It's just, I want this done. I'm going to do it no matter if I have to hurt people, kill people, whatever it is. So what did they say? Pfizer Beyond Tech. It's Beyond Tech because it's psychopathic. Announced Friday that they will expand their ongoing clinical experiments of their medical procedure in kids to include a third dose for participants as young as 6 months old. This is also from NPR. I'm not pulling this. I don't know if NPR is the greatest thing ever, but you can find this article also here. Pfizer plans to test a third dose of its Rona vaccine or its Rona medical procedure on infants and young children. What did they say here? Testing a third dose will cause a delay in submission of data. Regulators to authorize the use in the fall. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, I do know his name, you can look that up, said the company expected to have the data for this age group by the end of 2021. The company says that they would expect to file results in the first half of 2022 if trials are successful. These companies said 2 doses did not produce a robust immune response in kids 2 to 5 years old. This should be illegal. The other one that I will talk about is Pfizer's peak Rona sales have pegged at 50 billion plus, with this procedure still hauling in 25 billion by 2027. I mean, literally, if you think how much that is, that's a quarter. That's a quarter. Correct me if I'm wrong. Of Elon Musk's wealth in USD, I believe, and he's the richest dude in the world. So, what do they say? A confluence of new developments has shifted the landscape for the Rona drugs. Consider the Omicron variant and others presumably to follow, which could extend the scamdemic. And then there is the ineffectiveness of Regeneron and Eli Lilly antibody treatments against the new strain. I don't know too much about them. And the declining potential of Merck's co-oral anti. I don't know what these are. And add these factors together, what do you have? Mammoth sales ahead for this procedure. And also, you can also take a look at Peter McCulloch's thing and see that, hey, alternatives are being suppressed. So you can find this article at NPR. And you can also take a look at Fierce Pharma for the COVID thing, how they're pegged at 50 billion, with this procedure still getting 25 billion in 2027. You know what I find funny? That'll probably be worth like a whole 3 Dogecoin by then. The way they're on. No. So maybe hey, Albert, Mr. Brula, why don't you trade some of this stuff on? I'll give you my Coinbase referral link. You can trade all that stuff in. I still hate you, but you can click on the link. So basically, I don't know. This is extremely sadistic, in my opinion. Here's what I'd say: if you're an adult and you think and you watch this and you listen to Peter McCulloch, and you listen to Ben Tapper, or if you don't, but let's say you do, and you listen to me and you look at everything, and you look at Jones, whoever you want to look at, and you decide no, I think the experts are right. I think everything's fine. You take it. I still say adults, okay, well, I believe in freedom. You should be allowed to do that. Here's the problem I have. Kids don't get to make that discretion. This is experimental. This is new. It's only been out for a year. I know people say traditionally it takes 10 years. It's if you're going to test something, anything, these trials, in my opinion, have to take 10 years, have to take a long time, because you need to know long-term effects. Because if you don't, and you give a kid something, what are you going to tell them when they grow up, or when they have problems, or when they have complications? Say, well, we just took the.
It was to make everyone safer, and just as Benjamin Franklin said in 1755 in the Pennsylvania Assembly, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little bit of safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. So, again, there's no substituting safety for liberty, and vice versa. There is only liberty, and there is only the amount of danger which, the amount of safety which can protect you, that does not impede on any liberties. So, it's like if you want a free country, well, there's going to be a hell of a lot of danger, and it's like my perspective is I think people should be allowed to shoot themselves in the heads. As long as they voluntarily consent and there's no coercion to shoot themselves in the head, and they decide that they should shoot themselves in the head. And they do this as adults, as cognitive individuals. Yes. Now, if there's someone who who said they want to shoot themselves in the head, maybe try and take steps to get guns away, because we want to preserve life. Yeah.
And
to preserve life.
I would even say, and one thing I'll even interject and say is look, me being a libertarian, I know they're like, oh, well, Kareem just says you can do whatever you want. He don't care what you do. You could do all the bad things. I'm like, no, I would sincerely try and help you and get you a therapist and all that stuff, provided you're not a member of Congress. If you're a member of Congress, I'm like, oh, hey, you go for it. If Mitch McConnell's saying he wants to do that, I'm like, well,
if you want to take the vaccine, if you want to take mercury, cyanide, lithium, sodium benzoate, if you want to take whatever it is, monoclonal antibodies, whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever treatment,
Whatever you
I
want to
think
do.
you should have the right to take it. Just don't impose your will onto me.
Yeah.
I will not do what you say.
Yeah. And I'm not perfect. I have blood pressure. Sometimes I eat, half a bag of sunflower seeds in a day. And I know I shouldn't be doing that, but I do. But I do it.
Dude, you have cancer for sure. Sunflower cancer. You're growing a sunflower in you.
Probably. Maybe it'll give me special powers so I can fight the globalists. But yeah, I say, look, if you're gonna make a bad decision, even as a libertarian, I try and talk you out of it, as long as you're not a bad person. That being said, the kids don't really have the ability or the cognitive thing to get on the computer and research like that. Even though we're giving them phones, they're not going to know what's going on. So I'd say, since this is experimental, you wouldn't give a kid LASIK. You wouldn't let a kid have tattoos. You wouldn't let a kid, take specific substances. Unfortunately, I think some places in California are saying, okay, we can change your gender. I think that's wrong.
Oh, no, you can. And you don't even need your parents' permission in California. You can be a 14-year-old and say, well, my parents are vicious and they are absolutely against my body autonomy. Give me this permanently altering medical treatment. Yeah, that's where we're at right now.
That's terrible. But most states, I think, like maybe New York and California could do that. But like most places are like, no, kids not able to do that. So if they're not able to make those discretionary choices at that age, then they shouldn't be doing this. And legislatures should say, no, we're going to put a stop to this. At least the kids, adults can do what they want. So I'm just going to go international real quick. I'm going to bang out 3 stories. So Italy, basically in Europe, they have like the green pass. I think it's pretty much like the same thing they're doing here in like California and New York. Italy is planning to tighten rules for people who do not get that with a super green pass. Oh, sounds so great. What is it? Italy is to bar unvaccinated people or people who didn't get this procedure from popular social and sports activities, as governments across Europe are trying to tighten the Rona restrictions. And I get it. People are going to say, Kareem, I like Putin because he's not. Yeah, he's good on that. I'm not a fan still. I'm going to throw that out there. That being said, current rules in Italy and many EU countries with health passes also allow for people who provide proof of this test within the previous 48 hours to use recreational venues, a regime that has become known as 3G. I don't know why, but the Italian Super Green Pass removes that third option. So Netherlands and France are among those also likely to adopt a stricter 2G regime within 3 days. 3G refers to the German words Geimpft, which means you got the procedure, or Geist, which means you tested for the procedure, or Geissen, recovered. And 2G is that you recovered. And the Prime Minister, Mario Draghi, has been under pressure from regional governors to impose stricter mandates against people who have not taken it. And he said on Wednesday it was essential to mitigate the risk, and we want to be very careful and also to preserve what we achieved during this year, to preserve normality. Yeah, preserve normality, because locking people down if they didn't get a specific procedure and denying them bodily autonomy is normal. If you're an authoritarian, it's normal. And France wants to do the same thing, pretty much. France wants to make this Rona pass only available to people who get it. This is a real quick one on Politico. The French government wants to make its Rona pass only available to people who have got it. The government will submit a bill at the beginning of January of next year to transform the health pass into a procedure pass and tighten the conditions of the control and sanction against false passes. So at present, health passes, which are needed to enter restaurants, bars, and cultural activities, can be obtained if people provide a test or if they get it. But Castex said he wants only people who got this procedure to be valid, adding that the intensive care units of our hospitals are filled for the most part with people who didn't get it. One thing I'll say is you need to also get it and then wait 2 weeks. So you could be in the hospital with getting the procedure twice, but it's only been a week after the second procedure, so you're not actually considered valid. The French PM also said that local authorities will forbid gatherings outside. How are you going to deal with protests? Have fun with the yellow vests. The consumption of alcohol in the street will invite multiple municipalities to refrain from organizing large gatherings in the street, notably fireworks or concerts. So no fun in France. And unfortunately, Greece, the birthplace of philosophers, in my opinion. Most of the
Western philosophy, for sure. Yeah.
Western philosophy. Further amends COVID travel rules for foreigners. Health authorities said Wednesday that the measure will be in effect from December 19th, would require these stupid PCR tests, which Malone said do not work, no more than 48 hours old. And previously, they need proof of this procedure or recovery from Rona or negative. They need to submit a negative test. On Thursday, they also said that with all travelers aged over 5, they need to show a PCR test no more than 72 hours before their arrival. The Omicron, that 1.7% of people who got it, has prompted our country to take one-off measures for foreign visitors. He said the restrictions would apply for the Christmas period and were aimed to delay the spread of this scary bird flu to give the Greek people more time to get additional procedures. So that's all I got for news. Basically, what I want to say in light of all this is that these green passes, the super
Take your super green pass. Take the super green pass, damn it. They're super.
The super green pass. So, yeah, just make it sound like
ultra super mega hyper pass. Regardless, it's tyranny in the form of a climate friendly color. So if you want to sort of involve yourself in tyranny, if you want to be a volunteerist of tyranny and you want to volunteer under these sort of mandates and notions, at least you're doing it in the name of green. So I see that as maybe some sort of
positive. Like Vermin Supreme. I'm not a fascist. I'm a friendly fascist. Like, oh, well, geez. He's not like those other authoritarians. He says hi and hello, and he has nice manners. And, in my authoritarians, I like someone who's going to, wave and be friendly and always be courteous and tip his hat.
You know what I would do in Greece and in America if I had enough influence? I'd say everyone who's pro-vaccine, not against vaccine, whatever it is, burn your vaccine cards. Burn them. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Kick everyone out? You right? There should be a mass burning of these identifications. There should be a mass dumpster fire of these things, not because I'm against the vaccine, but because these things symbolize exactly that which led us to get away from Great Britain and all of the tyranny that was going on there. These pasts symbolizes the opposite of America's foundations and what the founding fathers want. It's the opposite of liberty. It's the opposite of autonomy. It's the opposite of being able to pursue happiness in your own domain and have privacy. It's the opposite of the HIPAA Act. It's a violation of everything we hold dear. If you're an American and you believe in the sort of basic fundamental parts of our country, even if they haven't been held true, even if they haven't been held in a lot of ways, right? Slavery, all these different things, Jim Crow laws. The idea is that you can live free from the oppression and the will of other people, and you can live your life and pursue your goals. That doesn't mean you're going to accomplish them, but that means you have fair grounds, right? Everyone has fair grounds, right?
Yeah, you all got a free shot at it. But what I would say, all this stuff going on, is that I want people to realize more than anything, whatever they do with their documentation or not, look, they're saying, "Oh, I'm going to comply. I'm just going to get this or that and get a test," and then eventually you're going to say, "No, we don't want that anymore." You have to actually get it. That's the recurring theme in all of these. Oh, well, I've been getting this, I'm doing the 2G, which I think is funny. They go to 3G. Oh, no, that's not good anymore. You have to get this. And then pretty soon it'll be, oh, well, you have to get like 4 of them, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 23. And that's a problem I have with people. Like, it's just this. It's just a whatever. It's just 2 weeks. It's just, this. It's just a couple of days. It's just a couple of months. It's just a year. It's just 2 years. It's just 1 procedure, just 2 procedures. It's just 2 procedures and a passport. And then it comes to Australia. It's just a facility. Okay. How far?
Did you see my my Facebook post that I put up? Hold on, I'm trying to find it.
Probably I see a lot of your.
Okay, here it is. Incremental encroachment of civil liberties is the path towards tyranny. It's just for safety. It's just for public health. It's just for your protection. It's just statements should be seen as the beginning of ultimate tyranny.
Yes, because in my opinion, no tyrant. I've never seen any tyrant, even the worst, like Mao Zedong, come out and be like, "Hey guys, guess what? I'm going to do all these bad things." Because nobody would. I don't think anybody in their right mind would be like, "Oh yeah. Go ahead and What I say is, oh, well, we just need a little bit of this. We just need. And I'm trying to find your post where you say that. I cannot find it. But yeah, it's just is the scariest thing. And in my opinion, we got here because a lot of people said it's just X. Well, if you keep doing that, you're going to wake up one day and see that everything's gone because they incrementally said it's just X. They're not going to do it all one shot overnight, no pun intended. They're going to do a little bit more. And look, people fall for it. Even the best of us, Jordan Peterson fell for it. So, I'm not judging anyone, who said, okay, I made a mistake. I'm not wishing ill will on anyone. I'm not saying anything bad about anyone did. But if you continue to just acquiesce, they are not going to stop. Look, you can't change, as Albert Einstein said, you can't solve problems with the same thinking that created them. Complying is not solving this problem. More complying is not going to fix it. I don't care who you are, what you are, it's not going to work. You have to eventually just say, no, I'm not doing this. And you know what? I'm going to do something else. Which is just, hey, I'm going to start saying no. If you start saying no and start saying, I'm done with it, I get it. You don't have to be Rosa Parks or a hero, but then other people start saying, well, one guy's saying no. Like Jordan Peterson did say, well, sometimes people are scared, and there's a lot of people. There's more people that like Zuby says, that say, hey, I really like what you're doing, but I can't say those things, but I appreciate it. He's like, I don't appreciate it because we're in this situation because you won't say anything. It's just me. So one person starts saying, I'm not wearing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not going out to get it. I'm not going to comply no matter what. I'm going to go to the venues I want to do and do what I want to do. And I'm not going to comply.
As Jordan Peterson said, we are all possessed by the attributes of the Auschwitz capital. And as Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, let the evil enter. Excuse me, let the lies spread. Let it even prosper, but not through me.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like his quote. He said, they're still lying. We know they're still lying, but they keep on lying. And I like that quote, but one thing he's missing there is they have no incentive not to lie. And if you're an authoritarian, you don't care. You want to keep lying because it keeps you in power. They will have an incentive to have to come out with the truth if you start saying, no, I'm not going to do things. Or if they don't want to do that, then they'll have to back down. So it's a win-win. So with that being said, Awesome show, Daniel. As always, you can
course.
find Daniel's work at Daniel B. If you just type in Daniel B, all one word, you can find his work here at The Quantum Effect. We've done several shows together, but you can also find his Welcome to Mises here, stuff on the Rittenhouse trial, stuff about your boy Bill Gates, the psychopath, things about Tesla, and much, much more stuff. It's all interesting work. Also, if you want to follow us, you can do that at The Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. Just type it in here on YouTube, and we'll be expanding it to Odyssey and Rumble. Thank you, everyone who tuned in tonight. I'm your host, Kareem Mays, with The Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. I will see you in the next video.